party starts at 6, so stick around. Appreciate you, FBC. God bless Texas.
We had some fine music there, and coming up next is the San Antonio Tea Party. Gosh, this has been quite an afternoon in a sky-filled chemtrail sky blue without the trails, if they were there. Hey, what are you doing, Nate? Nate Thomas is with us, crewing, helping set the cameras up and doing a fine job. And also we have Jim Ponick with us. But we're live from Alamo Plaza, San Antonio, Texas. This is April 15th. This is tax day, and there's a great tax protest going on here in downtown San Antonio, right in front of the Alamo. In 1836, there was a battle there that was fought, and it was not conclusive. Later on, San Jacinto, the Battle of San Jacinto, did finish the Texas-Mexican War with the Texans winning. They held out here as long as they could at the Alamo, but finally, the Mexican army was too strong and overran them. But they defended it to the last man. They burned the bodies and pyres out here, and it has quite a history for San Antonio. You know, really, when you come to think of it, the oldest actually settlers, you would say European settlers, were from the Canary Islands to San Antonio. They preceded Germans and the other white people that came in much later. There were Spaniards, of course, originally, and, of course, the Comanche Indian were very prevalent. There's a Comanche Trail, in fact, north of San Antonio, Texas. And the Comanches were very prevalent in this area, especially out to the western part of the central Texas area. And they gave havoc to the settlers early on. You know, in 1824, there was a Mexican Constitution that was put together by the Mexican government for the United States of Mexico. The flag, actually, the flag that flew over the Alamo was the 1824 flag. It was actually the Mexican flag with 1824, the tricolors, with 1824 impressed over it. This is a rich history in this area. And in 1833, the Santa Ana's government, you could say, reiterated and established a new, more statist, federalist type of government. Before that, the 1824 was much more of a republic of Mexico, much like the United States at the time. But in 1833, they reiterated and changed that constitution. This put the Texans on notice that something is going on here, and we've got to be wary of this 1833 new reorganization of the Mexican government. There were also breakaway states in northern Mexico. There were two republics created. There was a Republic of Rio Grande, and there was a Republic of the Yucatan. This is little known, even in Texas history. It's not taught in our schools. It should be. There were renegade states that broke away from Santa Ana's government in rebellion against that very harsh, repressive government. The Texans were also part of that, and they were a department of the state of Coahuila at the time. Mexico consisted of a United States of Mexico, and it was governed through the constitutional government, and then it changed in 1833. We're sitting here right in front of the Alamo, actually in Alamo Plaza. It's a little park between two streets there that are right in front of the Alamo. This is a robust, outrageous crowd. They are some enraged sometimes, but a little bit angry, I would say. They're angry at a government that they find that's moving too far to the left. There were signs here about socialism. Be wary of that, and they didn't like it at all. This is a pretty conservative, moderate group down here today, and they turned out by the thousands. There's a spillover area at Hemisphere Park, which is south of here. The Hemisphere was held here in San Antonio a number of years ago, and there's a Hemisphere Tower, actually about 700-foot tower there, south of this location that we're broadcasting from today. This is George Butler broadcasting for Genesis Communications Network. We want to thank Ted Anderson for his fine work up there in providing good programming to the American public. One thing about Ted Anderson, you can say he's really very much a constitutionalist, and there are many constitutionalists sitting here in Alamo Plaza today. And when we say constitutionalist, what do we really mean by that word? Well, it's someone that wants to get back to the original intent of the Constitution. Now, what is how do you ascertain the original intent of the Constitution? I believe you have to get back to the plain way it's written, the plain text that it's written in, and you can't try to use too many legal arguments because you're going to move with positive law away from the natural law base that the Constitution was based on. Many of our founding fathers established that Constitution and wrote that in Philadelphia, but it was based upon natural law, not positive law. Now we've moved away from that natural law base to positivism. And positivism today, you can go anywhere with that kind of interpretation and philosophy. One example of positive law would be from the Constitution and from the establishment of the Bill of Rights and so forth, there's a strong inference of what we call natural rights. The natural rights, and one being in particular, is the right to defend oneself. Earlier in the program, there was a man up here on the stadium, on the podium, that stated flat out that some two men were trying to attack him in his home one time, and he shot him. So he stood up for his right to protect himself, which is a natural right. Natural rights are God-given, and no man can give you those natural rights but God. Now, if you're an atheist, you're still receiving those from out of the existence of the reality. So it works for both the atheist and the believers. The Constitution, it lays out a philosophy of belief and a way of life and living that protects the individual over the versus the state. We have moved back to protecting the state over the individual. There was a recent interpretation or a recent reaffirmation of wiretap rules and laws in this country. This is outrageous, what types of rationales that they're making. This is straight out of the Pharisees of the Bible. And I can't say it any more succinct than that. If you're a believer and you know what the Pharisees were about, then these new Pharisees operating in Washington, D.C. are right there on top of it. Jim, what's going on here?
I'm afraid I'm coming in the middle of a conversation. I couldn't really hear what you were saying. It's incredibly noisy here.
A lot of people here right now, right?
It's still mobbed, yes. It's still mobbed. Even though the Glenn Beck gang have left, there's a lot of people hanging around. It's looking good, though. There's still a tremendous amount of people networking. I'm seeing people exchanging cards and talking. Everybody's shaking hands, saying, hey, it's great meeting you. So obviously a lot of new people hooking up, and this is what it takes. We need to get all the people with all their different ideas together and realize that we're all being put under the thumb the same way. This is the one thing that could unite this country, unfortunately, is this kind of despotism.
At 6 o'clock, we have the program coming up, mainly the main program from the San Antonio Tea Party Committee. And at 6, that starts sharply at 6. We have a prayer and welcome. Adam McManus, Pledge of Allegiance, God Bless America, the Alamo, A Line in the Sand. Julia Hayden, she's the communications director for this San Antonio Tea Party, will give that. There'll be some opening remarks by Glenn Beck for 10 minutes, I believe. The national anthem will be by Ted Nugent, and boy, he was playing a screaming guitar earlier. You should have heard him. At about 6:50, an immigrant story, Katherine Moreno. One thing I like about San Antonio, and this is something that Texas is pretty. If you come down to Texas, and especially San Antonio, you'll never see a more beautiful culture than in the San Antonio area. It has a much more laid-back feel here, and it is a beautiful, warm city for the visitors.
Some misunderstanding about the prepaid T-shirt orders. The prepaid T-shirts are over in the Alamo gazebo. If you paid for one online on our website, it is there. Okay, so if there's any misconception,
Okay, we've got a few announcements coming up here from the stage. We have really a crowd, an overflowing crowd. They are not only in front of the stage for the San Antonio Tea Party, but they're behind that stage, and they set 2 stages up here. The stage immediately to the west of the Alamo was the Glenn Beck stage, the Fox News Network stage. The stage further west of that is the actual stage that... Okay, we got this band coming in here. Oh my gosh, here we go. We're just about ready to get going here. We've got placards everywhere. Oh man, I tell you, here we go, folks. Yeah, it's going.
I did that for you, for the people, for the children, and for our future. Don't tread on us.
Hello, San Antonio. What a big round of applause for the Fellowship Bible Church Praise Band. Awesome, right? How good were they? I've said a few words to you already know who I am. I'm not Governor Rick Perry. Don't have the hair. My name is Joe Pagliarulo. Joe Pags from News Radio 1200 WOAI. Thank you. So glad to see every single one of your faces. I'm so glad that I'm a Texan by choice. Proud to be standing before you. As a matter of fact, proud to be standing with you. So proud. There are people back here. There are people over there. There are tons of people that way, and lovely faces in front of me as well. Estimates say 15,000, might be more. It doesn't matter. We're all here for one cause. I want to admit something. I voted for George W. Bush twice on purpose. I would have voted for him again last November had he run. I say that knowing full that he never saw a spending bill he didn't like until 2006. The spending is the problem. They're holding us down by spending our money. And then they're spending more of our money. And then they're spending money they haven't gotten from us yet. Then they're spending our kids' money and our grandkids' money. And then there's no more money, so they just start printing money. It's about time we raised our voices and said, that's not okay. I love the signs that we have. I especially love this is Texas, not tax us. This is not about not liking liberals or Republicans or conservatives or Democrats. It's not about that at all. What it's about is we have the power in this country, not them. This is about them representing us, not us cowering to them. I don't know Representative Charlie Gonzalez. He's a Democrat from the 20th District. And I'm not here to beat him up, but there's a soundbite from him today, or a story about him today, on WOAI radio. He'd come out here and stand with you and me. He said he thought it was a good event, but he couldn't make it. He couldn't make it because he was afraid it would be... Has anything been negative out here all day? Or is this a positive showing of what we, the people, would like to see happen? I'm not here to say vote for the Republican next time. I'm not here to say vote for the Democrat next time. I'm here to say vote for the person who will properly represent you and properly spend the money we let them have. The bottom line is a rally like this is a wake-up call. The bottom line is when the president sees this video, and he'll watch all of it, he will try to spin it in such a way that, oh, don't worry, people are getting tax cuts. Those people just had a nice day in San Antonio, wanted to just get together and hang out. When in reality, behind closed doors, he will have to take into account what every single one of us believes, and that's that government is for the people and by the people. And ladies and gentlemen, we are the people. I was so honored to find out that Glenn Beck was coming here today. Glenn is a guy, you saw his Fox News program today. He's getting 2 million viewers a night. He should get 5 million. He's that good. I love that I'm on the same radio station as Glenn. And I love that he chose San Antonio out of all the communities in this great country. He chose to come here. Why? Because San Antonio and Texas get it. You always have. Have I pointed out the building behind me? We've always gotten it. I got a couple of emails and a couple of phone calls on my radio program that said, you know, that's not right that you've got your agenda pags in front of the Alamo. What's the matter with you? It's not my agenda. It's what the Alamo represents. It's the symbolism of what happened there. It's a symbolism of a few people saying, we're not going to take it, and we will stand here. That's why we stand here tonight. This isn't anti-government. This isn't bad party lines. This is, we want better out of Washington, and if you don't do better, we'll do something about it, like this. What's interesting is, I'm actually doing my radio show right now. Oh, yeah. You know that I'm on until 8 o'clock most nights. The Spurs' last home game is tonight, so I'm going to stop at 6:30. But if we're loud enough, I think everybody in Radio Land might hear you. I think they... What? What's happening back here? You know, I apologize that the view isn't so good from back here. I get that, too. I understand. Maybe I'll stand sideways. I don't mean to disrespect anybody. Bottom line, pun intended, is that this gathering is probably going to be one of the greatest gatherings the entire nation will see today. And hopefully, they'll take your lead, and this won't be the last time we do something like this. And one thing I know is that those other networks will have to pay attention to this if they're worth their weight in salt when it comes to covering news. They will have to pay attention to this. They will have to see you. They will have to hear you. Ted Nugent is going to play the national anthem again. He played it earlier. Some people were going, I missed part of that. Oh, man, Ted already played it. He's going to be here again on this stage playing for you. Right now you see the colors of our great nation, which we are here to support, by the way, not here to complain about. It's funny because, 500 some odd people in Washington think that we're complaining about America today. Oh, come on, really? That's what you thought was happening today? Thank you. We are America. We're here to tell them we are America. You're just 500 some odd people in Washington have no clue. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Glenn is on his way out. I'll introduce him in a moment. But let's hand over your... You see the colors in front of you. I want to get everybody in line. We've got more flags coming up. Hats. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's right, people. We love you for coming out. We love that you took time off of work. A lady come up to you. Don't love me. You don't even know me, sir. I had a lady come up to me out. She's afraid that I'm going to show her or I'm going to say her name and I'm not going to do anything. She said, "I'm here from Canada." And you know what she said to me? "I'm here because I'm now an American and don't want to see happen here what happened there." How more simplistic can it be? Can somebody name the socialist country that worked? Can somebody name the country that worked because the government had all the power and the people had none? And conversely, you could probably name a country that has succeeded for 200 plus years because it didn't work that way. I can't hear you. Right. Back here's not doing anything. Come on. That's right. I'm so proud to be a part of this today. I'm so proud. You know, when I moved to Texas 4 years ago, I had a lot of people say, bless your heart. I found out later that wasn't such a nice thing sometimes. But now when Texans say it, I believe it, and I want to say from the bottom of my soul, bless your heart. I believe we're going to have a prayer. Who's going to do that? Where's Adam? Hey, Adam. Come on up, my friend. Adam McManus, talk radio show host. I was pleased to be able to go on his program today. Hopefully, I stole some of his listeners to listen to my show. Oh, are you here? Sorry, Adam. My pleasure to be on your show today. My pleasure that you're a part of putting this together, and my pleasure to stand here next to you. And I understand you've got the prayer for us.
I do. Thank you. Thank you. Will you bow your heads with me in prayer? Heavenly Father, we come to you today with heavy hearts. Our nation, founded on biblical principles, has seemingly lost its way. We've forgotten who we are and whose we are. Thomas Jefferson said it well when he declared, God who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, a conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are a gift from God, that they are not to be violated but with his wrath? Indeed, I tremble for my country, said Thomas Jefferson, when I reflect that God is just and his justice cannot sleep forever. Lord, how true that is. Today, April 15th, 2009, we want to reaffirm our dependence on you for our next breath. May Americans everywhere remember afresh that our freedoms, our liberties flow from you, our Creator. In these United States, we should be free to use our God-given talents to serve you and our fellow man as we provide for ourselves and our families without government intrusion and burdensome taxation. We should be free to think, speak, write, and worship as we wish, even if we don't toe the politically correct line of a morally bankrupt pop culture. Indeed, it is our prayer that the President and the Congress would recognize that they are not our Savior nor our deliverer. That is your role and your role alone. It was James Madison, our fourth president, who uttered this profound statement. We have staked the whole future of American civilization, not upon the power of government, far from it. We've staked the future of all our political institutions upon our capacity to sustain ourselves according to the Ten Commandments of God. Father, the state is not God. It is the servant of the people. May we, the people, gathered here tonight in San Antonio, each and every one of us, recognize the awesome responsibility we have to speak up and demand that our representatives begin to exercise fiscal discipline and liberate us from oppressive taxation, which penalizes our hard work and sacrifice. And we pray that where we have not honored you with our thoughts, words, and deeds, that you would please forgive us. Where we have not loved our neighbors as ourselves, that you would pardon us. It was at the Constitutional Convention of 1787 when Benjamin Franklin painted the big picture. He said, God governs in the affairs of man, and if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured in the sacred writings that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, said Benjamin Franklin. I also believe that with concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. In your word, we read in Genesis 11, that the people of that time said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. And because of that prideful motivation, you confuse their languages, scattering them across the face of the earth. Lord, we see such striking similarities today. Leaders who seek their own glory and not your glory. Replace their pride with humility. Replace their lust for power with a servant's heart. and replace their misguided politics with godly principles. We want you to rebuild the house known as America. We cannot stand by and watch our leaders labor in vain any longer. We acknowledge our desperate need for your aid. May we be a light to the nations, reflecting your righteousness and love. We pray all this in the matchless name of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McManus.
All right, I've got to be back at the radio, so would anybody mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance again? I've got Seth and Gavin. Seth and Gavin are these guys here. You might not be able to see them because they're about half as tall as I am. But believe me, their Pledge of Allegiance will be twice as good as anything I just did. Here they are, Seth and Gavin. We're going to get them set up. The colors are here. You want me to give them my microphone, or is there one up here that they should use? I'll give them this one. Do you both want to talk into this one? Okay. Seth and Gavin with the pledge. Please take your hats off. Please hand over your heart. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, my name is Adam McManus, and since 1997, I've hosted a political talk show heard weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 on 630 KSLR. So if you've never checked it out, and that might be a couple of you, I invite you to try 630 KSLR, add it to your car radio buttons. I've been endorsed by Hannity, Ann Coulter, and Chuck Colson. I've debated Alan Colmes, Barry Lynn, and even Al Sharpton. In fact, every Halloween, I debate a witch, so you need to tune in for that. That usually gets a little dicey. My goal is to empower the listeners to take a stand, so I'll often give out phone numbers to call and ways to make a difference. Tonight is an historic night in American history. I'm so thrilled that you took the time and the effort to show up. Citizens are gathering in 2,000 cities across the country on tax day to say with a united voice, enough. Stop the frivolous spending. Stop the new taxes. Stop the madness. Can I hear you if you've been taxed enough? I think the ayes have it. Yet, despite the skyrocketing taxes that we're all paying, a full 40% of our income, the politicians are spending money we don't have, putting us even further into debt. $10 trillion at this point with no end in sight. Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma said this stimulus bill is about spending money we don't have for things we don't need. One radio talk show host described it, and I love this, as intergenerational theft. Our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren as yet unborn will be paying the debt for years to come for the foolish policies of today. And that's wrong. Besides, America experimented with large-scale expansions of government spending in the 1930s with the New Deal, and again in the 60s and 70s with the Great Society. And guess what? Those dramatic expansions coincided with economic failure. I think I'm going to publish one of those dummies books. Here's the title: Economics for Dummies and Congress. Spend less than you earn. Spend less than you earn. The stimulus bill was 1,588 pages long, and sadly, not one of them had read it before they voted for it. $787 billion worth of our money. Then there was the $410 billion omnibus spending bill, chock-filled with 9,000 pork barrel projects, despite a promise there would be no more earmarks. If Frank Capra's movie was made again today, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, starring Jimmy Stewart, they'd have to call it Porky Pig Goes to Washington. $1 million for wastewater management in the tiny city of North Pole, Alaska, for example. I guess the elves asked Uncle Sam to play Santa Claus and give them something for nothing. $200,000 for tattoo removal in Los Angeles. Yeah, this is money well spent. I wonder if Angelina Jolie's getting in line. And $1.8 million for swine odor and manure management in Iowa. I'll tell you what stinks to high heaven. It's the politicians of both parties who abuse our tax dollars. One New York senator from the Senate floor boldly proclaimed, and you all know who I'm talking about, "Let me say to all of the chattering class that so much focuses on those little, tiny, yes, porky amendments, the American people really don't care." Well, I guess we're the so-called chattering class. He said you really don't care. I've got a question for you. Do you care? Yeah. Have you been taxed enough? Yeah. On December 16th, 1773, 116 Americans decided that they had had enough as well. That's why, under the cover of darkness, between 7 and 10 p.m., many dressed as Indians, they threw 90,000 pounds of tea overboard into the Boston Harbor because they refused to pay the English tax on the tea. England was guilty of taxation without representation, just like our leaders today. Perhaps one of the first voices in the national level calling for a modern-day Tea Party was Rick Santelli of CNBC Business News. Have you seen his YouTube video clip? When he said on February 19th from Chicago, after the stimulus bill passed, it resonated with so many people, 1,011,000 people had viewed it as last night. Here's what he said that was so shocking to the politically correct crowd. Quote, "This is America. How many of you," he said to the TV audience and to his fellow traders, "how many of you people want to pay for your neighbor's mortgage who has an extra bathroom and cannot pay their bills? Raise your hands." And guess what? No one around them did. No one wants to pay other people's bills. As Americans, we're in favor of free markets, not free loaders. This is why Noah Webster, the author of the original Webster's Dictionary, declared, "Let it be impressed on your mind that God commands you to choose for rulers just men who will rule in the fear. If the citizens neglect their duty and place unprincipled men in office, the government will soon be corrupted." A wise man once aptly described the cycle that many a country journeys through, from bondage to spiritual faith. From spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to complacency. Does any of this sound familiar? From complacency to apathy, from apathy to dependence, and from dependence back into bondage. My question is simple. Where are we on that cycle today? Is this nation not becoming increasingly dependent on the redistribution of other people's wealth? Is bondage on the horizon again? In many ways, our internal threats are far greater than the external ones. In the spirit of the Sons of Liberty, we issue a simple message. Don't mess with Texas. Texas's 7th governor, Sam Houston, once said, "Texas has yet to learn submission to any oppression, come from what source it may." And as Governor Rick Perry said recently, we didn't like oppression then, we don't like oppression now. I believe it's time for a second Declaration of Independence. This time not from a foreign government across the Atlantic Ocean, but from our own. Thank you for your encouragement. Well, at this point, I want to welcome Jean French. She's been married 21 years. She's the mother of 3, grandmother of 6. Having survived cancer, Jean embraces life at every turn, singing in the Wayside Chapel Choir and volunteering for the Salvation Army. When she sings, she does it for the Lord and from her heart. Jean became a huge fan of Kate Smith, whose rousing rendition of God Bless America in the 1930s and 40s and unflagging wartime fundraising made her an enduring symbol of patriotism. Jean is just as proud to be an American and loves this country deeply. Please welcome Jean French.
God Bless America prelude. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful to a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Jean. That was beautiful. Julia Hayden is a military veteran of 20 years in the Air Force, having served our country as a broadcaster. Born in California, she has lived all over the world before retiring from the military in San Antonio 12 years ago. Julia writes historical novels under the pen name of Celia Hayes, contributes to a large number of websites for writers and historical enthusiasts, and is currently the media spokesperson for the San Antonio Tea Party. Please welcome Julia Hayden.
Hello, and thank you all for coming to our modest little tea party in the heart of San Antonio. First of all, are we having a wonderful time? Fiesta San Antonio begins tomorrow, so we have been telling everyone to come for the tea party and stay for Fiesta. First, though, I would like to thank everyone who took that extra effort and worked very hard to make this particular place, this very special place, available to us on short notice. The City of San Antonio and the Fiesta Commission, which graciously helped us to obtain the use of this place, so that we could meet here today. They deserve our special gratitude. Thank you, Fiesta. Thank you, City of San Antonio. Yes, this is a very special and significant place for our Tea Party, although most visitors, upon seeing it for the first time, are surprised. It looks so very small, nothing like the way it appears in the movies. San Antonio de Valero, so called the Alamo for cottonwood trees that grow wherever there's plenty of water in this otherwise dry country. There were cottonwoods nearby then, enough so that the soldiers of Spain who first set up a garrison in this old mission called it so after those trees. Imagine, if you can, how this place would have looked then. Close your eyes and just imagine. Banish the sight of all these tall modern glass buildings and these rambling Beaux Arts and storefronts, and I'll paint a word picture for you. Go back 173 years. The actual town of San Antonio is now some little distance away, a huddle of adobe and stucco walls around the Tower of San Fernando. The air smells of wood smoke and cooking, of sweat and horses and spent black powder. We are standing in the middle of a sprawling compound of long, low buildings, a single room deep with tiny windows and thick walls. Some of these have flat rooftops, others have shallow peaked roofs. Many buildings have had their inside walls raised, others filled with rubble and dirt to make cannon mounts. The gaps between are filled by palisades of earth, tight packed and reinforced with links of wood, and tangles made of sharpened tree branches. All of this work has been done painfully, by hand, with axes, picks, shovels, and buckets. The chapel, of all of these buildings, the tallest and the strongest, is roofless too. Another earth ramp has been built up inside of it to serve as yet one more cannon mount. This place has become a fortress and a last defense, surrounded by an overwhelming enemy force, a large army of over 2,000 men, outnumbering the bare 200 or so defenders by 10 to 1. This enemy army, trained, hardened, disciplined, is well equipped with cannon and ammunition, with cavalry and foot soldiers alike. By order of the enemy commander, a blood-red flag signifying no quarter to the defenders of this place has been flown from the tower of the San Fernando Church. The story is that on the day the last courier left the Alamo, a local man who knew the country well, mounted on a fast horse, bearing away final letters and dispatches, one of the Texian commanders called together all his other officers and men. He was a relatively young man, William Barrett Travis, ambitious and, to be strictly honest, a bit full of himself. I rather think he might have struck some of his contemporaries as a bit insufferable. But he could write. He could write. He could write words that leap off the page in letters of fire and blood which glow in the darkness of history like a distant bonfire. He was in charge because of one of those turns that bedevil the plans of military men. His co-commander, James Bowie, was deathly ill. Ironic, because he was the one with a reputation as a fighter and as a leader. Bowie was seen by his enemies, of which there were many, as a violent scoundrel with a reputation for bare-knuckle brawling, for land speculation, and shady dealing. And of the third leader, one David Crockett, celebrity frontiersman and a former congressman. He did not claim any rank at all, although he led a party of Tennessee friends and comrades. He had arrived here almost by accident. Of all the leadership triad in the Alamo, I think he was perhaps the most amiable, the best and easiest tempered company. Of all those others who had a stark choice put before them on that very last day, that day when it was still possible to leave and live, most of them were ordinary men, citizens of various communities and colonies in Texas, wanderers from further afield. Afterwards, it became clear that only about half a dozen were actually born in Texas. It is a vivid picture in my mind of what happened when a young lawyer turned soldier stepped out in front of his ragtag crew. Legends have that Colonel Travis drew his sword, that weapon that marked an officer in the 19th century, and marked a line in the dust at his feet and said, "Who will follow me over that line?" It was a choice put before them all. Here's the line. Swear by stepping over it that you will hold fast to your comrades and to Texas, all you amateur volunteer soldiers. Make a considered and rational choice, not in the heat of the day, but in the calm before the siege tightens around the crumbling walls. No crazy, brave impulse in the thick of it, no time to do anything to react. Stay put, choose to live, or step over it and choose to go down fighting in the outposts that you have claimed for your own. The legend continues. All but perhaps one crossed that line, James Bowie being so ill that he had to be carried over it by his friends. It was a choice of cold courage, and that's why it stays with us. These men all chose to step across Colonel Travis's line. Some had decided on their own to come here. Others had been tasked by their superiors, and still others were present by mere chance. They could have chosen freely to leave, but they all stayed, being convinced they ought to take a stand, that something ought to be done. Imagine the men who came here, who made that choice, who had the cold courage to step over a line drawn in the dust at their feet. They were animated by the conviction they were citizens, that it was their right, their responsibility to have a say in their own governance. They were not subjects expected to submit without a murmur to the demands of a remote and arbitrary government. They did not bow to kings, aristocrats, or bureaucrats in fine-tailored coats, looking to impose taxes on this or that, and demanding interference in every aspect of their lives. They were citizens. They were ordinary people with muddled and sometimes contradictory motives and causes, fractious and contentious just as we are. But in the end, they were united in their determination to take a stand, a gallant stand against forces that seemed quite overwhelming. This evening, we have also come to this place, this very place, as is our right as citizens and taxpayers, to speak of our unhappiness to our government in a voice that cannot be ignored any longer. This is our right, our duty, and our stand. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Julia. A native of Colombia, Katherine Moreno has just celebrated her 38th year living in America, and she's loved every minute. Today she works as an accountant and is the single mother of Victoria, her 12-year-old daughter. Katherine believes that the United States is the only country in the globe where anyone can rise from the ashes of poverty to reach their highest of dreams. Please welcome Katherine Moreno.
What an honor to join the millions of people that have come out tonight to tell our government, enough! Stop spending our money. Our children's wages is not the government's credit card. Make no mistake, we all came out because of that vile feeling in our gut. It is telling us that something terrible is going on. Our nation and our republic is under the greatest attack since the Civil War. And I am for such a time as this. My name is Katherine Moreno. I'm a single mother and a resident of San Antonio. Today, I share with you my American. I was born in Colombia, in a land where if you are born poor, you die poor. A land when opportunity and prosperity is only for a few. A land where an individual has no voice. My mother, when she was a young woman, she heard of this great place called the United States of America, where she, like millions of others, dream of reaching so they could improve their lives. This country, I have worked hard and I have made a good living for my daughter and I. I will never forget my mother telling me all the time the miracles that God made to bring her to this land. In 1968, her dream came true and our lives were changed forever. Every day I thank God and my mother because they gave me the opportunity to live in a nation where the Constitution says that citizen is above government. In this country, anyone can reach their dreams. My American story is like millions of American stories. It is the privilege to live in the greatest country in the history of the world. It is because I love this country that I stand here representing all of those who sacrificed to come here. We cannot take for granted the privilege of being a United States citizen. Have no doubt, my mother, your parents, and your great-grandparents all tried to reach the land of opportunity and prosperity. No one ever says, I will leave my family and my country to go to the United States to receive government charity, handouts. Regrettably, handouts is exactly what the socialist movement is pushing. They want to convince us that handouts are better than prosperity. The alarming thing is that so many of us are buying into the lie that government is our way out of the hole. But that's impossible. They put us in the hole. Our American dream is being replaced by a big government that continues to shove down our throat more and more taxes. Somewhere along the line, the civil servants forgot they work for us. We don't want handouts. We demand opportunity. Handouts, whether they are given at a street corner or in a government office, are demoralizing. We know that that nauseating feeling in our gut is a warning. It's a mechanism of our common sense. We cannot ignore it. It is telling us that there is a deliberate attack against our way of life. If we embrace government as the answer, we have lost sight of our values and ability. And we will enable a government to dictate our life. Handouts are un-American. This attack is pushed by a media that misuses its power to vilify anyone who loves God and country. The very media who is mocking us tonight for coming out. The attack is by university graduate rows of students who believe in the socialist values, taught by liberal professors who are paid by the government and glorified by the media. The attack, ladies and gentlemen, is on each of every one of us who love our country and our Constitution. The bad news is that we today face a less prosperous future. We have taken for granted a constitution that empowers us against tyranny. We have assumed that our way of life is guaranteed. We have been naive and trusted an arrogant and self-serving government. The bad news is that one day we're going to wake up in socialist France. The great news is that we are Americans. We are, yes. USA, yes. Thank you. We are Americans. We are a people with an enduring spirit unlike any other in the world. We are smarter than government. Thank you. I'm almost finished. It'll be 2 minutes, I promise. The good news is that while we sit frustrated in our living rooms while we watch our nation being destroyed, a man, yes, our 21st century Thomas Paine whispered to our hearts. He said, "You are not alone," and we surround them. Tonight, thousands of us have come out to say in a loud and unified voice, Mr. President, Madam Speaker, and all of you who want to destroy our country, listen to us. We proclaim today, from sea to shining sea, yes, we surround you and we will take our nation back. Let's stand together and be proud to be Americans. Let's stop apologizing to the world because we are a blessed society. In the words of Thomas Paine, society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best stage, is but a necessary evil. And in its worst state, is an intolerable one. Let's not socialism take the power of we the people, by the people, and for the people. God bless you and God bless America!
Exactly right. I talked to Police Chief Bill McManus a little while ago on my radio program, and he is so proud to be in San Antonio, and so proud of all of you for how you've gotten together here and let your voices be heard, with smiles on your faces, with vim and vigor in your gut. I just want to tell you all, I love you. Yeah. That's what I want you to know. I'm proud to have been a part of this, but I'm going to get out of the way. Well, how does it feel to have been a part of a television program viewed by millions today? How does that feel? I want to introduce my friend, a guy I look up to, and a man that you have been waiting to hear from again. He had you on the TV show earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Beck.
God bless Texas. I tell you, I think we landed last night about 1:30 in the morning, and I have been, when I got on the plane yesterday, I was so sick, and I have been so run down, and I have to tell you, you have energized me all day long. There is just something about Texas, and I know you know about it because you're here all the time. God love you. You know, I just wanted to first just say thank you so much for coming. Thank you for welcoming me to your town and to your great state. I feel like I'm coming home every time I'm here. It is. What we need to do is we need to take the feelings that we have here and spread them across the country. What we need to do is just remember, you know, I was giving a talk earlier today that nobody had to tell us who to be or how to act on 9/11. Nobody. Nobody had to tell us. On 9/12, on 9/11, we were asleep. You know, on 9/10, we chose to ignore the problems. We chose to ignore those problems. On 9/11, we were asleep and we were afraid. But on 9/12, without anybody saying, be good to each other, we just were. We don't have to be told how to act. We're naturally those people. All we have to do is just not care anymore. Not care what, you know, they have been making fun of me crying Stephen Colbert like nobody's business. And you know what? Part of me, I look at that and I'm like, come on, guys. But you know what? In the end, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You know, we all have to be prepared to lose everything. You know, okay, we lose our job. Oh well. Okay, we lose our house. Oh well. Okay, it's going to be tough. Oh well. We know how the story ends. We know what is real. We knew what was real as Americans on 9/12. Our families were real. Our country was vulnerable, but it was real. We just need to reconnect and realize that no matter what we lose, it's gonna be okay. And here we are at a time when it's going to take an awful lot of bravery. It's going to take a lot of bravery just to stand courageous, to stand while people throw stones at you and not to pick up a stone and throw it back. Be the better person. Don't let this day pass by. Connect with other people. Bring this spirit elsewhere. Make sure it spreads. Make sure people know that you are proud of the Republic, not just of the Republic of Texas, but the Republic of the United States of America. I just want to leave you with this. I told you before, and I make you this promise. I make you this promise. If we are the people that we were born to be, if we are the people, every single one of us are here for a reason. We live for a reason. You might feel inconsequential. You may feel that I don't have a purpose. People belittle you, people make fun of you, but every single one of us has a purpose, and it is a purpose for good. If you just live to your best self, mighty miracles will come our way. God bless you. Thank you so much. Oh, wait. I forgot one little thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ted Nugent. There he is.
I'll take that mic, Vaughn.
Glenn Beck is my blood brother. Starting right now, Glenn, you are an official Texan. He got a plaque from the Alamo, and I'm going to teach him how to kill Texas whitetails. He's going to be just fine. All right. Let's hear it for Glenn Beck. Did he represent you? Is Glenn Beck's logic your logic? Is Glenn Beck's self-evident truth your self-evident truth? Hello? Now, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. I
cherish the American dream. I cannot tell you how much my family cherishes an experiment in self-government. We cherish a lifestyle based on self-evident truths. We don't just enjoy it. We don't just celebrate it. We're just like you. We have an alarm clock and we use it. We get up early to be the very best that we can be. And then Fedzilla blowtorches our paycheck. We teach our kids that you are worth what you can produce, nothing more. And that if somebody bails you out, they're telling you you're a wimp. You can't make it on your own. Here, let us cover your worthless ass. You know, I think Texans have more alarm clocks per capita than anyone. You know, Texas created 70% of all the new jobs in 2008 in the nation. You have more alarm clocks per capita. You have more work ethic per capita. You have more spirit per capita. You have more piss and vinegar per capita. And most importantly, you have more guns per capita. I love Texas. You know, they asked me today as I was coming, they said, "Hey, Ted, you going to carry a gun?" And I went, "No, I don't carry a gun." Okay, and I hope the whole world is watching Texas closely. Because I come from Detroit, great musical capital, used to have great spirit, but if you want to see what liberal policy making will do to a great society, I give you the pimps and the whores and the welfare brats of Detroit that now rule that once great state. And if that's what you want, Obama is your president. However, if you want to kick ass and be the best that you can be, and teach your kids that this great shining city on the hill is about excellence and about sacrifice and about a Herculean work ethic to never give up, then we've got to take this energy, we've got to take this spirit, this rugged individualism, this, my favorite, this defiance. If it only lasts here, if it's gone when you leave here, shame on you. If you don't bring this attitude and this defiance and this demand for accountability immediately Monday, even in the great Republic of Texas, you've got to remind your senator. You've got to remind your congressman. You've got to remind your friends in California, your friends in Minnesota, your friends in Michigan. You've got to remind all your coworkers, the people you go to church with, the people you go to school with, the people at deer camp, the people at the barbecue. If you're not telling your elected officials what you demand of them, you are the problem. So even though I love seeing all this attitude, I celebrate. I'm stoned on freedom right this minute. I'm actually high on the defiance of Davy Crockett and Colonel Travis and Jim Bowie and 138 men who took on thousands of Santa Ana's men and killed them like squirrels. Our new Betsy, our new squirrel rifle, is the vote, the pressure, the letters, the phone calls, the texts, the emails, the faxes. And I got to tell you, I hear a lot of cheering, yeah, go Rory. I hear a whole lot of that at all these events I do around the country. And then I go home and I talk to a senator, I talk to a congressman, and I go, "So, did you hear from anybody?" Yeah, 3 guys called me. So I'm going to leave with these words. I know I'm just a guitar player, but bear with me a moment here, would you? The real curse in America today are not the pimps and the whores and the welfare brats who are getting bailed out and having their hands held and being told over that you're worthless, you need money, you need the money from the hardworking people. They're not the curse. The left isn't the cursed. The liberals are not the curse. Obama is not the curse. The curse is apathy. Those who know better come to a rally and get all excited and then go home and do nothing. That is the soulless condition that is pandemic in the United States of America. And I beg of you, let me see, if I can't bring it home like this, then there is no hope. Today, like I do, I don't know, every 3 or 4 days in my life, every 3 or 4 days in my life, I get to hang out with legless Marines. I get to hang out with Army guys with no skin. Today I hung out with the heroes of the United States military who wheeled themselves in here today. And they sacrificed their eyes. They sacrificed their legs and their arms. They sacrificed their skin. Many of them that were not here today sacrificed their lives for the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and we the people. I pray to God in heaven. I pray to the spirit of Colonel Travis and Sam Houston. I pray on the blood of your uncles and your fathers and your grandfathers who were at Normandy and were victims of the Bataan Death March and sacrificed in Vietnam and Korea and sacrificed in Desert Storm and sacrificed their lives. I pray that their sacrifice so you can be free will be shown in respect and appreciation by exercising the freedom they died for. In fact, we are surrounded right now by veterans of the United States military. Please, let's have a hand for the U.S. Marine Corps, the United States Army, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, the National Guard, the Coast Guard, law enforcement heroes that are here today. I've never felt safer in all my life. None of my friends carry a gun. That's like being a bullet. So, by the sacrifices of warriors, are you allowed to do this? By the way, look around you for a minute. Just look around. Look at your buddies. Just look at these people. Take a good look. Take a look at the Alamo. Take a breath of the blood in the air in memory of the heroes of the Alamo. Absorb it. Emote it. Cherish it. And know in your guts. You see this? You can't do this in France. You can't do this in California. Not the way you guys are packing right now. But my point is that take this exuberance, take this authority home with you. Teach your children that men and women were blown up for the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and then demand politely, yet firmly, and constantly with your elected officials on a regular communication basis, remind them what your family believes in and what you want our employees of the elected office to provide to us. I could go on and on how we need to get rid of their lifetime payment plan. I could go on about how they need to consult with us before they spend our great-grandchildren's income. I could go on, but it would be redundant because you all get it. Now keep it, celebrate it, take it home with you, and shove it up their ass. Can I say ass? Is that legal? All right. I don't apologize. I've stood up my entire life against the scum on the left as they've attacked me, and they can't shut me up. They can't stop my music. They can't slow me down. I crush them. I make anti-hunters eat meat. I cause liberals to join the NRA. That's what I do. I cause hippies to come to Texas and learn to deer hunt. That's what I do. Raise hell. Don't take it anymore. I've got a guitar, and I want to play a little ditty for my heroes of the United States military, all my blood brothers of law enforcement, and working hard, playing hard Texans who are going to take this home Monday, and you are never going to let the Obama administration tread on the great Republic of Texas. Are you?
Nugent would learn how to speak his mind once and for all. For those of you who have just gathered at the Hemisphere and are watching this on the Jumbotron, or you've come late, my name is Adam McManus. I host an afternoon talk show on 6:30 KSLR weekday afternoons from 3 to 6. And I invite you to tune in and even sign up for my daily email alert at takeastand.net. Janine Turner, star of Northern Exposure, is coming up next. She also is in Friday Night Lights, and she'll be joined by her daughter, Juliet.
Howdy! Woohoo! Yeehaw! Look at all the people here. This is just fantastic, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to read something to you guys. When I have a few things to say about being a mom. But, you know, the federal government was created by the states to be an agent of, guess what? The states! However, today, states are treated as agents of the federal government. Yeah. So I want to read to you, I don't know, the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Okay? And here's what it says, written by our brilliant forefathers. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people! Okay, so I don't know. I think a lot of us watch Glenn Beck here, yeah? So I go out and read everything he tells me to read. So I went out and got the realistic visionary George Washington, and I also got...
They're asking you to turn around. They'd like
Turn around?
There too.
Oh, hi! Hi! I thought he was going to kick me off and tell me to quit talking. I won't be long. Okay, so anyway, I've been reading The 5,000-Year Leap, which Glenn recommended everybody read, and The Realistic Visionary about George Washington. Anyway, I have come up with a lot of great quotes here out of The 5,000-Year Leap. And one is, you know, we need to remind Congress that the thrust of the government comes from the people up, not from the government down. Yeah. And we don't want to become, this is my saying here, but we don't want to become the United Socialist States of America. So this is from the book. It says, we do not want to become infatuated with the idea of solving all the problems of the nation, no matter what the cost. And Thomas Jefferson said, it's immoral for one generation to pass on the results of extravagance in the form of debt to the next generation. And Glenn Beck, I don't know if any of you watched his Thomas Paine interpretation, but he says, you know, it's the government of the people, by the people, for the people, not government of the government, by the government, for the government. Amen, right? Okay, so I just want to say that my daughter's up here with me, and I'm a mom. And if I can spread anything a little, maybe perhaps, oh, I'm getting her with my bracelet. We need to educate our... Okay, I'm going to keep I have this charm bracelet that gets her. We need to educate our children. We need to educate them about the brilliance of our forefathers, about the Constitution, about, you know, all of the history, the rich history that we have in our country. So if I can encourage anything today, because listen, we want our children to grow up and to be educated and knowledgeable about the Constitution, and we don't want the mortal enemies of freedom to dominate the debate. So I encourage everybody to get out there and educate your children. Get the 5,000-Year Leap. Read it to them. Talk about the United States around the kitchen table. Talk to them about it when you take them to soccer. Get those video games off and turn the iPods off and start having read about our American history. Because if our future generation, if they are not educated about it and how brilliant these forefathers were and how wonderful of a country we live in, I'm afraid we will lose our country. And so to finish up, my daughter wants to say something. Hi, y'all.
I just wanted to say, this is a little thing for the government here. Don't tread on the people. Don't tread on the families of America, and don't tread on the children of America. God bless the people of America and America. God bless you all.
Out of the mouths of babes. Edward Jaax is a home-educated 18-year-old and an Eagle Scout from Bandera, Texas, with interests in history, civics, business, and law. He's a 2008 alumnus and 2009 returning participant of the Torch of Freedom Foundation's Patriot Academy for the training of young leaders and the teaching of government and principles from the Founding Fathers' perspective. Edward is the president of the Hill Country Communicators Speech and Debate Club and enjoys playing the cello and piano as well as reading classical literature. I guess this guy recognizes TV can kind of sap the brain, right? Please welcome Edward Jaax.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edward Jaax. I am 18 years old, and my desire is to be a good citizen of our great nation. 4 years ago, a good friend of mine ran for a Texas state representative seat. My family served as one of his county coordinators. After a few months of an uphill battle against the incumbent, we won the election by 44 votes, one of the smallest margins in the state. Prior to this, I was not particularly interested in politics or civics, but afterwards my interest and participation spiked. In the last 3 years, I've helped in 4 elections, the most recent being when our friend ran for re-election. I once again helped block walk, phone bang, put up signs, host a fundraiser, and work at polling places. And when the results were tallied, he lost by 17 votes out of 30,000 casts. That is 0.05% This was painful, especially for some of my peers and myself, as we were too young to vote, which is a citizen's duty. During this time of disappointment, a mentor challenged me with this question: Edward, what are the real duties of a citizen beyond voting? Our American culture answers this question with several external duties, all of which focus on these external acts. But are these enough? Or is there something deeper in protecting our liberties? Could it be that most Americans do not know what the basis and foundation of a great citizen is? Today, I'd like to encourage you that it's not only our culture, but some very key principles that define our duties of citizenship. Understanding those duties will allow us to protect our liberty as a citizen of the United States for years to come. Let us first look at the current cultural beliefs. The top perceived duties of a citizen in the current landscape of our culture is to obey laws, serve on a jury, and vote in elections. If the duty of a citizen is to only carry out these external actions, let us look how America is performing in each of these 3 areas. First, obeying laws. If we are all basically good citizens, why do state and federal legislatures meet year after year to enact thousands of new laws? If we were good law-abiding citizens, I would think you would need less laws, not more laws. What do you think? Next, serving on a jury. How many people do you know who have given a reason not to serve on a jury? I personally know more people who have given a reason not to serve on a jury than people who have actually served on the jury. And yet our founding fathers believed that a court system that incorporated a jury of one's peers to be a fundamental safeguard against corruption in the courts and tyrannical judges. Finally, the pinnacle of good citizenship, voting. Consider some recent elections. In a recent general election, we find that out of only 50% voted nationwide. And in Texas, the number drops to 45%. In last year's Texas primary, the average voter turnout was a dismal 22%. During the 2006 general election, the national voter average was a mere 9%. Do we stop there? Oh no. In local elections, such as school boards, city and county offices, the average voter turnout ranges from 1% to 10%. Thus, at best, only half of the citizens of our nation carry out their duty as defined by the culture. And at worst, less than 1 out of every 100 people vote. So when we shout taxation without representation, let it remind us we must diligently practice and encourage others to take serious their duty to vote. Again, our culture defines a citizen as one who obeys laws, serves on a jury, and votes in elections. But I submit to you today that most American citizens either do not participate in these duties or they grumble about them. What will happen if society continues down this road of focusing on and celebrating these external actions? The number of laws will continue to increase. As governments help us out in areas of our lives, they increase in size and power. Jury duty. If no one fills the jury seats, will we lose our right to a trial by jury which should consist of our peers? Can voter turnout get much lower than 1% for our critical local elections? This state of affairs is completely contrary to what the Founding Fathers had intended in the Declaration of Independence, quote, that to secure these rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, end quote. These observations should raise the question in our minds: what is the source, the well, or the spring from which every citizen's actions must flow? Edmund Burke, a statesman, summed it up nicely when he said, "Freedom without virtue is not freedom, but license to pursue whatever passions prevail in the intemperate mind. A man's right to freedom being in exact proportion to his willingness to place chains upon his own appetite. The less restraint shown from within, the more must be imposed from without," end quote. This quote provides the two principles necessary to protect our rights: a moral standard and self-government. This is the only way to protect our inalienable rights. The necessity for a moral standard is clearly visible in President John Adams' writing, quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." My fellow Texans, when freedom alone is the valued ideal, freedom becomes just a license to pursue anything that seems right at the time. This is apparent in a society where people believe freedom is the ability to define right and wrong as situational, relative, or subject to the desires of the moment. These people will design a society as if there is no moral standard. But a moral standard provides the glue to form a group, a culture, or a community in which every individual decides of his or her own volition to abide the ethical laws that govern the whole. This moral standard must rest in unchanging principles, for if not, then the standard will change with circumstances. George Washington in his farewell address said, quote, "Virtue or morality is a necessary spring of popular government. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim tribute to patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness," end quote. The key is liberty, not just freedom. Liberty is the choice to operate with responsibility in defined boundaries, but it will only work when linked with a moral standard, for in that standard hang the rights in which we are so proud. This brings us to self-government, which is the second of two necessary ideals on which hang the Constitution and the civilian's duties. Looking at a dictionary definition of self-government, we find it defined as self-control or self-command. In taking this definition and going further, we find it defined as restraint exercised over one's impulses, emotions, and desires. This means purposely behaving in an appropriate way. Just think what our community and our nation would be like if everyone displayed this virtue. Controlling one's emotions and desires would curb theft, lust, murder, greed, corruption. The list goes on and on. But if we do not govern ourselves and have responsibility, other people will step in and govern for us. In this case, our government. As they continue to take over areas of our personal responsibility, they increase in size and power. And we certainly do not want that. A former president wisely observed that a government big enough to give you everything you need is powerful enough to take everything you have. That will be the result if we do not govern ourselves. So let's leave us as citizens. Yes, we do need to obey laws, serve on a jury, and vote in elections. But these are not the best, nor even the correct way to protect our rights. As we looked at America's performance in each of these three areas, what we found did not look encouraging. A citizen's duty to protect his or her rights does not merely contain itself to doing good things, but in fact it is being a great moral person. The only way to ensure that this current and future generations have the blessings of liberty as United States citizens is to govern ourselves according to an unchanging moral standard. Then and only then will our government be within the guidelines of our Constitution and establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. It has been my great honor to address you here at this historic event. I stand with you as citizens who want to take our duty seriously, as citizens who do not want our government to take care of us, but rather to be accountable to us. And as citizens who value the liberty provided for us in our Constitution. Thank you for standing for that cause, our liberty.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone willing to start an exploratory committee? Edward Jaax for president. Phil Pepin was a helicopter electrician in the Navy, after which he became an entrepreneur when he started the first gourmet coffee house in McAllen, Texas, which he ran for 5 years. Any coffee fans out there? You all don't need caffeine. You're pumped up. As Ted Nugent say, you're high on freedom. After Phil got burned out on coffee, Phil sold the business and started Tunesmith Studio, a recording studio which he runs here in San Antonio. And most recently, he became a co-partner of Basil Records, an independent record label. Throughout the presidential primaries, he sent me many a passionate email campaigning for his presidential pick. Phil is married and has 2 children. Please welcome Phil Pepin.
You know what? I'll have to hold it. Hello, fellow patriots. As Adam said, I'm a small business owner, and I'm concerned about the economy. My business, like many others, has been affected by it. We've all heard about the war on drugs and the war on terror, but there is another war raging right now. This war will have a profound effect on your life, your children's lives, and the lives of generations to come. It's the war on economic freedom. Watching the mainstream media coverage of the economy, I'm constantly frustrated. The so-called economic experts all seem to have the same philosophy. They blame free market capitalism and tell us that government must pass more laws, spend more money, and take even more control of our economy. These experts call their philosophy Keynesian economics. Whatever you call the concept, it means government thinks we're too stupid to run the economy. We need them to run it for us. Most mainstream media news isn't really news. It's more like propaganda. We are being conditioned to expect government to control every aspect of our lives. The critical part of this issue, rarely discussed, is that economic freedom is one of the most essential freedoms that Americans have. Freedom of choice in the marketplace is the reason Americans have the highest standard of living the world has ever known. That great accomplishment is being destroyed right before our eyes. Politicians and the media want you to blame the free market. They tell you that free market capitalism is the problem. It's not true. How can something be the cause when it doesn't exist? True free market capitalism hasn't been a dominant system in America for decades. What we really have is a government-managed economy, and that's what's failing. Politicians and the media tell us more control by the federal government is the answer. They are wrong. The solution is freedom. The government controls the economy through regulation. Without exception, Government regulation increases the cost of everything we buy. It's a hidden tax. Government regulation limits a company's ability to pay better wages. Government regulation stifles innovation. Without innovation, American companies can't compete. That leads to fewer jobs. Government regulation has caused outsourcing. Even worse, the complete exodus of industries to other countries. It's no secret. It's getting hard to find anything made in America. Government regulation is often used to favor one company over another. Usually it's a large corporation using government to eliminate competition from a small business. The result is you and I have fewer choices. This is a very dangerous trend that is destroying our economic freedom. It leads to the perversion of capitalism known as corporatism. Many Americans mistakenly think corporatism is capitalism. Most of the media and elected officials don't understand the difference. To put it simply, corporatism is the unholy alliance between government, large corporations, and banks. Usually they are multinational and have little regard for American sovereignty. Corporatism is a key component of socialism. It's not a new problem. The Founding Fathers referred to an economy controlled by government as mercantilism. One of the major reasons for the American Revolution was to escape British mercantilism. The colonists resented the British Empire's punitive taxes and regulations. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Their resources were taken for the good of the empire at the expense of the colonists. Our Founding Fathers knew that a free market was essential for us to be a free people. America was a free market capitalist country for 137 years and was very prosperous. However, there were those who wanted to return to mercantilism. Unfortunately, in 1913, they took control of our government. That year, two critical events changed America. A group of industrialists and big bankers rammed the Federal Reserve Act through Congress. It gave control of our monetary system to a cartel of private bankers. That same year, the income tax was created. These two events ended true free market capitalism and started the era of state corporatism, leading America on the path towards socialism. The Federal Reserve was created for the benefit of multinational banks and corporations, not for the good of all Americans. The income tax was created so the federal government could control our wealth. Think about it. Before 1913, Americans kept 100% of their paycheck. The corporatists got away with it, the scam, because they had taken control of most of the major newspapers. That gave them control of the media of their time. The Federal Reserve has done a great deal of harm to this country. Its policies have caused endless inflation. A dollar today is only worth about 3 cents compared to $1 in 1913. Its destructive policies created the cycle of boom and bust. The press calls them bubbles. The Federal Reserve provides a means for government to grow in size and power, taking more of our freedom. The Federal Reserve has created a system that encourages reckless spending and malinvestment, the root cause of this recession. It was the Federal Reserve that pressured Congress for the recent bailouts. It's no accident that a large sum of the bailout money went to the banks that created the Federal Reserve. The bailouts are a perfect example of the destructive nature of corporatism. The federal government chooses who wins and who loses. It's no surprise politicians that voted for the bailout received contributions from those who got the money. The good news is we can stop the Fed. There is legislation that was introduced recently that calls for an audit of the Federal Reserve. We should know what they're doing. The bill is H.R. 1207. I urge you to call your congressman and support H.R. 1207. Americans need to know the historic facts I have mentioned. When you look at America today, you'll understand why things have gone wrong. For those who ask, what can I do? Knowledge is the first step in bringing about reforms. Take time, learn the issues. You can't separate economic freedom from other essential freedoms. This must be understood by all Americans. The internet is a great resource for learning about the free market. With knowledge comes confidence. Then you'll be able to defend capitalism, the system of a free people. Get involved in groups like the San Antonio Tea Party and the Campaign for Liberty. Above all, don't be discouraged. It seems like you're outnumbered, but remember, it was only a few people that started the revolution that created this great country. Founding Father Samuel Adams said, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." Thank you for being here, and let's go start some brush fires of freedom.
Thank you, Phil. Now, I got to commend you. This is one of the most patient audiences. You all have been standing up for a long time. All of our calves are going to hurt tomorrow. We're barely going to be able to get out of bed. But it's going to be worth it because I've got some very special speakers still in store. Don't go home. And the grand finale, Steve Vaus, who will sing his powerful song about it's time to take America back. You will not want to miss Steve Vaus, who's going to bring us on the home stretch. Terri Hall founded the San Antonio Toll Party in 2005. Terri, I think you're more popular than Joe Pags and me combined. She started it as a taxpayer revolt when she learned the Texas Department of Transportation was trying to convert Highway 281 into a tollway. She ultimately formed Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom at texasturf.org, a statewide group whose goal is to stop the Trans-Texas Corridor. Now, while she's a regular guest on the Adam McManus show on 630 KSLR, she claims that her appearances on CNN's Lou Dobbs and American Morning were more exciting. But who can blame her, right? Most importantly, though, she's the bride of Roger, and listen to this, the proud homeschool mother of 7 children, 5 daughters, 2 sons. Please welcome Terri Hall.
Good evening, San Antonio! We just love you, and we're so proud of our Tea Party. How wonderful to be a part of it. I think the words of a patriot of the past, Thomas Paine, that were uttered in 1776 reflect where we find ourselves again today in America. He said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value." Is that not so true today, fellow patriots? The Trans-Texas Corridor and the widespread proliferation of toll roads, particularly the use of public-private partnerships to exploit the eminent domain powers of government and join it with the financial self-interest of private corporations, is nothing more than an all-out assault on our freedom. The freedom to travel, the freedom to own private property, the freedom from oppressive taxation and overbearing government. And that, my friends, is tyranny. Though not easily conquered, it can and must be crushed. The NAFTA superhighway, known as the Trans-Texas Corridor, or the TTC for short, to Texans is called a myth by those trying to silence the truth, but it is very real and even has some segments already under construction here in Texas. It's a 4,000 multimodal network of toll roads, rail lines, utilities, telecommunications, and pipelines of all sorts. It will be up to 1,200 feet wide. That is 4 football fields wide. And it will take a total of 580,000 acres of private Texas land. 2 companies are partnering with an American company and have been given the rights to develop the TTC, which includes the right to build the most lucrative segments without being subjected to competitive bidding. And it will leave the taxpayers to subsidize the parts that aren't toll viable. The TTC will literally bisect whole towns and cities, slicing them in two, giving residents, farmers, and school children no access to the other side of this 1,200-foot wide tollway. In fact, the law states the private operator only has to build overpasses where the corridor intersects current state highways and interstates. So the TTC 35, there would only be 5 exits in the entire state of Texas. So make no mistake, the nightmare called the TTC is alive and well. We've personally attended most all of the nearly 100 TTC hearings since 2006. When more than 40,000 Texans have gone on record against it, politicians take notice. But instead of kill this nightmare, they try to find new ways to put lipstick on their pig. Last year, there was an announcement disguised as a victory where the Texas Department of Transportation, or TxDOT, said that it would now expand existing highways, primarily Highway 59, to build the TTC 69 route, instead of building a massive new highway through rural Texas. But guess what? There's always a catch when billions of dollars are to be made and when multinational corporations are chomping at the bit to get their cheap Chinese goods into the U.S., exploiting cheaper Mexican ports, trucks, and labor. Let me read to you what the winning bidder, ACS of Spain, said was the purpose of this corridor. Quote, TTC 69 will connect the Mexican border with the Gulf of Mexico coastline, Houston, and major industrial and logistics centers in Texas with the north of the country. ACS and its partner, the Texas concessionaire Zachary American Infrastructure, have become the successful bidders of the design, planning, and development as strategic partners of TxDOT of the TTC 69 infrastructure corridor for the next 50 years. End quote. The purpose of these corridors is clearly international trade, not congestion relief, as our politicians claim. And they have no intention of killing their plans to build these trade routes at Texans' expense. Oh, they'll tell you that your free lanes will still be there, like they're fixing to do here to our freeways in San Antonio on 281 and 1604 and elsewhere. And that is to toll the existing freeway lanes and make the only free lanes frontage roads. They will downgrade your highway to access roads. Calling it highway robbery is no exaggeration. It's a double tax to charge us again for what we've already built and paid for. Concerned citizens through TURF have also been on the front lines fighting the use of stimulus money to build toll roads. And yet another double tax scheme. They're going to build your road with stimulus money but charge you a toll to drive on it. The Transportation Commission voted to use 70% of our federal stimulus funds to build toll roads. But you're going to have to pay a toll tax to drive on them, which is insanity. Within 2 weeks of TxDOT's announcement that it would use existing roads for this TTC 69, TxDOT signed a public-private partnership contract with ACS of Spain and Zachary of San Antonio. And it gives them 12% guaranteed annual profits, a no-bid right to cherry-pick the most lucrative segments to profit from, and they're not even bringing their own money to the table when on some segments up to 100% of the construction costs will be paid for with your money. That's right. Texas lawmakers are going to steal our gas taxes, our public bond money, and our federally backed loans to build the NAFTA superhighway, but they'll charge you again and again to drive on it and give all the profits to Zachary and ACS of Spain. On January 6th of this year, TxDOT also announced that it's renaming the TTC. They're calling it the Interconnectivity Plan. Because 40,000 Texans stood up against the Trans-Texas Corridor, they realized they better come up with a new name because it ain't passing muster. Now they try to fool us by giving this detested project another fancy name, which in reality is just more lipstick for their pig. We've been browbeat with a pack of empty talking points by think tanks and government alike that these public-private toll deals are free market. And the silver bullet to building our infrastructure without having to raise taxes, they say, because the private partners bring all the money to the table, not cash-strapped government, and it's the private partner, not the taxpayers, who will bear the financial risk. Well, all you have to do is dig into one of these 5 contracts already signed here in Texas or in other states like Indiana, Illinois, Florida, and Virginia to know that not one of those things is true. First of all, a toll is a tax! And in the case of public-private partnerships, that's a tax in the hands of corporations, not you and I, unelected officials. Try 75 cents a mile on for size. That is the published toll rate that Cintra, also based in Spain, will charge for 2 projects where they just inked a deal a few weeks ago in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Imagine 75 cents a mile. For the folks taking that road, that will be $3,000 a year in new toll taxes per commuter, per household. Second, there is no risk to the private operator when the taxpayers are subsidizing these projects with heaps of public money, including gas taxes. And when the state grants investors a non-compete agreement that prohibits the expansion and construction of any free roads that would compete with their toll revenues, then they can guarantee congestion on our free lanes for a half a century or more. When these sweetheart deals fail, like we've seen with the mortgage crisis and the subsequent global financial meltdown, it's the taxpayers on the hook for the debt, not the global corporations. One contract even gives TxDOT a financial incentive to lower the speed limit on competing free interstate I-35 in order to drive more traffic to their high-speed Trans-Texas corridor. Our government has become the puppet of private industry, and they've figured out how to team up to make billions off the public's roadways. These highways belong to we the people, not the government and not the road lobby. They have no right to steal our land in the name of public use when it's really about private gain and big government profiteering that will relegate those who can't afford tolls to second-class citizens. Eminent domain has always been used for roads, but now for the first time, the government can literally steal your land, pay you next to nothing for it, and give it to a private company for private profit. It is the versus New London case wrapped up in a different colored bow applied to roads. In Texas, they even passed a law called Quick Take that allows the government to vacate a landowner within 90 days of notice of condemnation, even without paying you yet if your case is not settled. This almost guarantees that the landowner will have to take the state's offer, because who can relocate hundreds of head of cattle in 90 days without any compensation? There is a massive war going on in this country between the pro-privatization special interest groups and freedom-loving Americans like you and I. The laws have already been dramatically altered to allow these public-private partnerships, and politicians have orchestrated a shift away from an affordable gas tax-funded freeway system to a policy of prolific and oppressive toll taxation. They're planning to toll the living daylights out of urban commuters in order to give their cronies government-sanctioned monopolies over your roads that you depend on for daily living. We experienced uncharted territory last year when gas hit $4 a gallon. That was above the inflation-adjusted high for 1980. We're back up to $2 a gallon right now. And the mentality inside the Beltway and in Austin is that no matter what they decide to charge us in toll taxes, that they know the motorists will have to pay it. They know that we have to get to work and that they will have few free road alternatives. This is oppressive taxation on top of skyrocketing fuel costs, And there's only so much money in the family budget that can go to transportation before it takes money away from the necessities. We already see a dramatic decline of the standard of living in America in a very short period of time. It's only going to get worse, they tell us, in order to condition us to accepting the globalist agenda. Toll roads ultimately chop up our freeways into a two-tiered highway system, one for those who can afford thousands a year in new toll taxes, and one for those that can't. And for those that cannot afford these roads, they become second-class citizens stuck in congestion while still paying gas tax, and will face the reality of having their freeways downgraded to access roads. This is not only un-Texan, it's un-American. Isn't this what we're conditioned to accept in government? We're endlessly being asked to tighten our belts while both state and federal governments siphon off our gas taxes for diversions that don't even pertain to roads and squander the rest of it on frivolous earmarks like the bridge to nowhere. How about TxDOT spending $9 million of taxpayer money to wage an ad campaign to advocate toll roads in the Trans-Texas corridor? TURF filed a complaint with the Travis County DA's office immediately learning of this illegal use of our taxpayer money. The DA's office did nothing. So we filed a suit in civil court to stop TxDOT from spending any more of our taxpayer money for lobbying. Through our lawsuit, we discovered that indeed TxDOT has been engaged in illegal lobbying. They can't say they're not lobbying when invoices show they've hired 5 registered lobbyists to the tune of $100,000 a month to lobby elected officials in Texas and in Washington, particularly targeting local officials in the path of the Trans-Texas corridor. We found documents that show the purpose of the ad campaign is to neutralize toll opponents and to target counties that were opposed to the TTC to turn the tide of opposition. Their PR firm stated the political environment needs to be changed to make it less hostile to the TTC. And they said the goal of the campaign was to define the benefits of the TTC and help inoculate it from negative attacks. They also conducted push polls on the taxpayer dime to garner support for the TTC. And the testimony from someone in the state auditor's office found that TxDOT knowingly ginned up bogus funding shortfalls in order to push toll roads. And I'm afraid it doesn't stop in Texas. Just last summer, a new lobby group called Transportation Transformation, or T2 for short, announced that not only TxDOT, but 3 other state departments of transportation have officially teamed up with bond investors and private toll road and corridor interests to directly lobby Congress in Washington for more public-private partnership toll roads, which is the most expensive way to fund our roads. TURF has actively worked to effect change in the Texas legislature for the last 2 sessions. I was appalled at the level of corruption and outright contempt for the average citizen in Austin. When we go to testify before and against bills, we literally are the only ordinary citizens in the room. In fact, these hearing rooms are packed, 3 and 4 people deep, standing room only in the back, of nothing but lobbyists. Do you want to know why your phone calls and emails aren't making a difference? Because special interests and lobbyists run our government from the shadows. I like to call them the shadow government. We never elect them. We have no influence over them at the ballot box. They exist solely for their own self-interest to exploit you and I, the taxpayers, in order to increase our tax burden, and it's for their own benefit. It is like a feeding frenzy at the public trough. And a book by a friend and TURF board member, Dr. Pat Choate, called Dangerous Business, The Risks of Globalization for America. He includes an entire section in the back of his book that has page after page after page of elected officials turned lobbyists who are now lobbying their former colleagues and making 6-figure plus incomes after they retire from Congress. And they're making money, lots of it, at our expense. And this is just, that list, this thick, is just from the last 2 administrations. That's why they don't listen to us any longer. Even if we are successful at booting them from office, they know that they and their families will be taken care of for their whole lives by the big money. It's abundantly clear that our elected officials no longer represent us. We have volunteers that have been handing out an important flyer to you today that gives you a list of bills currently before the Texas legislature, which is just a taste of the taxation free-for-all happening in Austin this very hour. Last session, the legislature placed a moratorium on these public-private toll roads. But it was a counterfeit moratorium. At least a dozen of the contracts were taken out of the moratorium, as evidenced by the 2 just signed and given to Sintra that will charge us that 75 cents a mile up in Dallas-Fort Worth. The Texas Senate just passed 2 horrific bills last week. One to reauthorize the private toll contracts that sell our highways off to the highest bidder, and the other that allows them to levy a litany of local taxes on everything that moves. I'll give you the short list. An impact fee for new residents, a tax on passenger vehicles, a vehicle registration tax, a vehicle sales tax, a local gas tax increase, a tax on every mile you drive, a congestion tax on high congestion areas during peak traffic, a driver's license tax, an emissions tax, and even a tax on a parking space. And that's not counting the other transportation taxing zones that will come after your property taxes too. But right, these public-private partnership contracts. This is an outrage, and we cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand or simply wish that this all goes away. We need your help to stop this runaway taxation and this threat to our freedom to travel. We must take our government back. We need to fight for elected representatives who are public servants and statesmen, not self-absorbed politicians who exploit those they are elected to represent. That means some of you need to be willing to run for office. All of us need to support candidates who value the Constitution more than winning re-election. And we must all get involved in the political process in some way in order to preserve our precious republic for future generations. We need leaders to take an oath to always put the public interest above special interests and put principle over party and values over what's politically expedient. And it all starts with educating ourselves and our children on the founders, their lives, and the principles they fought and died for in order to establish a country based on self-governance, set apart from those before her and after her. And she still stands as a city on a hill today. And like this book, For You They Signed, and this is by Marilyn Boyer, that has the character studies on the lives of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Boy, now more than ever, we need a new generation of patriots willing to mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to once again establish a free republic for our posterity. And we must demand fundamental reform to ensure checks and balances and to put the power back in the hands of the people, as the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees a free people. And if we don't, our government is on track to bankrupt us and future generations. So I ask you, have we had enough? I cannot help but be inspired by the resolve of yet another patriot, Patrick Henry, who said in his famous speech that sparked a revolution, "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it not, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death." We need to ask ourselves, will we allow our government to shackle us with oppressive taxation just to get to work and go about daily living? Will we allow our government to carve out a 1,200-foot wide swath through the heartland of America and sacrifice private property rights in the name of foreign trade and commerce? Or will we fight a new revolution, a taxpayer revolt, a political movement to stop the sale of America's freeways to the highest bidder on Wall Street, to stop tolls across Texas and America, protect our right to own private property without fear of government abuses, and to preserve our way of life and our precious freedoms bought with a price by those who came before us? Those who have sold out American freedom in the in favor of the almighty dollar and the intoxication of power aren't counting on you and me and this freedom movement from taking our government back. But as for me, and I think for all of you here today and the hundreds of thousands who couldn't be with us, that the resounding answer is, give us liberty! In closing, may this event spark a movement of ordinary citizens from all walks of life and all political stripes who have had enough of abusive, overbearing government and who see the dire necessity to change course. We stand at a crossroads, and may this day, April 15th, 2009, mark a turning point to a constitutionally restrained government, and one that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. We invite you to get involved, to join us on the front lines of a taxpayer revolt to preserve our freedom to travel by visiting our table that's right out here in front. We see the turf banner right over there. You can go to texasturf.org. And I have to say, no one else can do this for us. We must do this ourselves. Government certainly doesn't fix itself. We often feel like Peter, the little Dutch boy who had his finger in the crack of the dike and held back certain disasters for his homeland. We need more people in this fight. It is a Texas-sized tax revolt, and that's what it will take to stop this assault on our freedom and our posterity. But most importantly, never give up. Do not falter. Never waver in the cause of liberty. If this one homeschool mom can start a movement that's spread across this state to influence the Texas legislature and all the way to Washington, D.C., and recently even to Denmark, so can each and every one of you. Thank you, and may God bless and preserve what our founders inherently knew was a fragile republic, the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Doug Phillips is a constitutional attorney who studied under Judges Robert Bork and Doug Ginsburg. After he served for 6 years at the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, Doug and his wife Belle founded Vision Forum Ministries here in the Alamo City, devoted to producing books and tapes to restore Christian families. He calls men to sacrificial fatherhood and wants to see dads turn their hearts to their wives and children. In addition to having spoken at more than 100 homeschool conferences in 42 states, Doug founded the Witherspoon School of Public Policy and Law and the National Center for Family Integrated Churches. This summer, July 1st through 4th, he's leading 2,000 Christians to Boston to celebrate the 500th anniversary of John Calvin, whom many consider to be America's spiritual founding father. Check out his website at visionforumministries.org. Doug and his wife Belle are grateful for 8 children that God has graciously given them, including 4 boys and 4 girls whom they home educate. He also served as counsel for the Alabama Ten Commandments judge Roy Moore, who was told he could no longer acknowledge God. And I thank Doug Phillips for being on the front line of that important fight. Please welcome the man who has personally inspired me to be a better Christian and a better husband to my bride Amy, Doug Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have just realized something. We are standing here, and we may be the first audience that's been here in 50 years that's had an opportunity to say with one voice a remembrance to one of the great battles, by the way, against unjust taxation, against unconstitutional activity by the Mexican government, against tyranny, the battle for the Alamo. We may be the one audience that has the opportunity, 16,000 people, to say in unison, remember the Alamo. Will you do it with me? Remember the Alamo! Praise the Lord! Well, this, of course, was the cry that was given at San Jacinto as the great Texas patriot Houston led his troops into battle in front of the weaselly, impartially dressed Santa Anna, who would be led with absolute disgrace from the field. Victory would be secured, and the beginning of Texas was only just starting. But I'm here today to tell you, as I speak to you, about 2 important things, free men and tyrants, as we begin to close out this very special tax day, Tea Party that God has given us here in front of the Alamo. I'm here to say that there's something important that I think we need to do. We need to give thanks. We need to give thanks, first of all, to the God of liberty. Our God the author of liberty, who our founding fathers acknowledged, who they began the Declaration of Independence with acknowledging him. He is the one, he is the reason why we can be here today. And he taught us something. He taught us something that's very important. Here's what it is. Honor your father and your mothers that you may live long in the land. In fact, when Jesus came to the earth, the Son of God, he said that this was the first command with a promise. Do you know that there are children that are being taught in government school systems to hate their fathers and mothers? There's an entire generation of Americans that are being taught to despise history. There is an entire generation which is rising up that have forgotten and are wiping out the landmarks and legacies of the past, including the battles that were fought here. But did you know that less than 9 blocks from where we stand right now, there is a monument? Have you ever been there? Have you ever seen the monument to Moses Austin and to his son, the founding father of Texas? Here's a monument over there in Military Plaza, and it's of a father with his son right beside him. And the reason why we planted that monument there many decades ago was to remind us that a father had a vision for his son to bring families to the state as a true founding father. And his son, Stephen Austin, Texas's founding father, came here with 300 families and thus began this great experiment in liberty of which we are the happy beneficiaries today. Thank you to these men. We also need to be very thankful for another group, and that's a group of daughters. In fact, we are here today because this particular group of daughters has allowed us to be here. I'm speaking of the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. Thank God for the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, that magnificent edifice behind us is not owned by the state, it is privately owned. Its very existence is a testimony to freedom. Its very existence is a testimony to the fact that when you honor your fathers and mothers, it will be well with you, and you will live long in the land which the Lord thy God giveth to thee. All right, are you ready for our discussion? Here we go. We're going to talk today about the 5 key messages that these Alamo defenders are giving, speaking from the grave to the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And here they are. Message number 1, tyrants must give way to free men. Message number 2, constitutional liberties are worth fighting for. Message number 3, it's not yours to give. Message number 4, and please listen very carefully. I'll try to say this as simply as possible. You may not take our guns. And the final message, the state is not God. Only God is God. The state is just the state.
Thank goodness, folks.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look around you, and I want you to just go back in time with me for just a second, and I want to tell you something that is awesome to consider. You are standing on holy land. In fact, around you there were dead bodies, hundreds of dead bodies. There was blood on the ground. You are probably standing near or by where someone lost their life, and not very far from where we stand here today. Great men like Travis, great men like Crockett, and the rest of that remarkable crew gave their life just hundreds of yards. And every time you come to San Antonio, every time you stand in front of the Alamo, you need to stop and realizing I'm walking on American holy land, the land where our fathers died and where our fathers bled. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now, years later after the Battle of the Alamo, after Texas freedom was secured, we find ourselves in the middle of an amazing crisis. You know, it was Ronald Reagan who said, in the present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem. Let me tell you how this crisis happened. This crisis happened through years of not just bad spending, but immoral spending. This crisis happened with years of judicial tyranny. This crisis happened because of constitutional abdication. And friends, this one hurts. This is a hard one. And it's hard for all of us to hear. It happened because we continued to elect the culprits. And the time has come for us to begin to stop doing that. We must do more than simply complain. We must take action. And that means that part of our message for the future must be, if you will not follow this Constitution, we don't care who's running for office. You will never get our votes because we insist that the Constitution be followed. There is a cover-up that these politicians have been doing for many decades. You know, they call it a bailout. We call it theft. when our judges want to make rules that are designed to ban God from the public square, to deny us to even acknowledge the author of life and liberty, the God who is referenced in the very last section of the United States Constitution, which declares that the document was signed in the year of our Lord. That's Jesus Christ, by the way. And the Declaration of Independence, which began with the fact that we are endowed by our Creator, not the tree god, not Mother Earth, our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Ladies and gentlemen, when these individuals say that, well, they're just following an evolving Constitution, our response is, it's monkey business. We say no to tyranny, and we stand with the Alamo defenders, and we remember their message. Tyrants must give way to free men. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there was a book that was written about the same time, just a few years before the Alamo fell. It was one of the most important books because it was an attempt to take the principles of Christianity and freedom and to embody them in a dictionary. It was called American Dictionary of the English Language by Noah Webster. It was published in 1828. Listen carefully to the official definition of a tyrant. Are you ready? This is the definition of a tyrant. A ruler or master who uses power to oppress his subjects. A person who exercises unlawful authority in an unlawful manner. One who by taxation, injustice, or cruel punishment, or the demand of unreasonable services, imposes burdens and hardships on those under his control, which law and humanity do not authorize, or which the purposes of government do not require. In other words, what is a tyrant? The people that are ruling today. To this, Thomas Jefferson once said, resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. And this is part of the message of the Alamo defenders as they stood here. And they said something else as they were fighting here. They understood and they proclaimed to the entire world that constitutional liberties are worth fighting for. Ladies and gentlemen, Davy Crockett didn't have to come down here. He didn't have to bring the Tennessee Volunteers down here. They came because they saw that this was a cause which went to the heart and the soul of freedom for nations, for people, for the future, for the remembrance of the past of what our fathers had done. And they came here to fight for that ideal. Can you imagine our politicians today giving up their health, their wealth, all the things that they have to go and actually sweat and work and to fight with the common man for freedom? These are the kind of men that died here at the Alamo. This is the kind of men, the kind of leadership that we saw here that birthed the freedom that we have here today. And it wasn't just Davy Crockett. It wasn't just Bowie. It was others. It was noticed Tejanos like father and son Erasmo and Juan Seguin, and Lorenzo de Zavala, and others who would stand here and fight around Texas against Mexican tyranny for freedom. But here's what maybe you don't know. As they are here, and as their blood is being spilt, and as the spots where you're standing right now are being covered with the blood of dead men, something else is taking place hundreds of miles away. During the 13-day epic siege, meetings are taking place at Washington on the Brazos, which is our Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen. And as February 23rd, the siege begins, the Alamo will, of course, fall on March 6th. But the Declaration of Independence will be signed smack dab in the middle of the battle. It will be signed on March 2nd, thus proving that what is taking place here is a lawful act. And do you know what they said in the Texas Declaration of Independence? They said this: you may not take our guns. They said this: you may not tax us unjustly. Listen to the words of the Texas Declaration of Independence. And I quote, when a government has ceased to protect the lives, liberties, and property of the people from whom its legitimate powers are deprived, and for the advancement of those whose happiness it was instituted, and so far from being a guarantee for the enjoyment of these inestimable and inalienable rights, becomes an instrument in the hands of evil rulers for their oppression, when the federal republican constitution of their country, which they have sworn to support, no longer has a substantial existence, and the whole nature of their government has been changed without their consent from a restricted federal republic composed of sovereign states to a consolidated central military despotism, we therefore, the delegates, with plenary powers of the people of Texas, in solemn convention assembled, appealing to a candid world for the necessities of our condition, do hereby resolve declare that our political connection with the Mexican nation has forever ended and that the people of Texas do now constitute a free, sovereign, and independent republic. And it concludes by saying this. Are you ready? Listen to these words. We fearlessly and confidently commit the issue to the decision of the supreme arbiter of the destinies of the nations, that would be the Lord God Almighty. This is our foundation. What did these men understand about constitutional principles? Well, one thing they understood was that their fathers had died in the War of American Independence against a tyrannical regime, that they had gone to Philadelphia, that they had crafted an amazing document, a document that people all over the world would look at as a symbol and a beacon of light. That document, the United States Constitution. They had carefully, ever so carefully moved from the Articles of Confederation, which bound our sovereign states together, into a federal constitution, ever so carefully, because they never wanted to see tyranny emerge again, and so they crafted a Bill of Rights. And these Bill of Rights are remarkable because every single one of them was put together not to stop the people from doing things, but to protect the people against a tyrannical government. And so the First Amendment said this: hey, Congress, don't mess with our religion. Don't mess with our speech. Don't mess with our right to assemble. And the Second Amendment said this: you may not take our guns. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Mr. Congressman, why you may not take your guns, is because we need them in case you misbehave. The Third Amendment to the United States Constitution said you may not invade our homes. The Fourth Amendment said don't mess with the freedom of our persons. And then we went on through the Fifth, the Sixth, the Seventh, and the Eighth, each of which dealt with protections against usurpacious court systems and tyrannical politicians. But we finally come to the Ninth and the Tenth Amendment. And these were special amendments, because in the Ninth Amendment it says this: that the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And friends, let me just put that to you in shorthand. Ever since Magna Carta in 1215, when King John was surrounded on the field of Runnymede, and ever since British and free men have secured rights against tyrannical states, there have been transcendent principles of freedoms that no state may ever abridge. And if we don't spell every single one of them out, they still exist. Don't take them away. And finally, we come to the 10th Amendment. This very, very important amendment. I'm going to read it to you because this is sacred to our cause. We stand here today. The 10th Amendment says this: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, here's a primer in constitutional law on what this means. It means this: the federal government is not our nanny. The federal government is not our mother. The federal government is not our doctor. The federal government is not the high priest of a new religion. And ladies and gentlemen, the federal government is not our savior. That designation is reserved to one person only, the Lord Jesus Christ, who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and to whom the author of Psalm declares, the nations of the earth should bow. In fact, this was what our founding fathers understood, that the purpose of government was very simple. It was to restrain against evildoers. It was to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. And by the way, if you don't think I'm serious, I have a little girl here who's my daughter. Her name is Liberty. And I have a son here who's my son. His name is Justice. Back when they were just little tiny 2 and 3 years old, I took them to the United States Supreme Court. And we walked up into the front of the Supreme Court. And if you look up on the edifice up there, do you know what you see? You see on the edifice it says this: justice is the guardian of liberty. I turned to that little boy and I said, guess what your mission is, son? You're the protector of your sister. Don't you forget it. These men understood the principles of constitutional republican government. They understood that the Bill of Rights was to protect these freedoms, and they understood that they had to fight for Texas freedom. You know, James Madison, the father of the Constitution, summed it up when he said this: "The powers delegated to the federal government are few and defined, and those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce, and the powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which in the ordinary course of affair concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people." In other words, there's very little the government has to do except what the government is supposed to do, and to that they must remain faithful. But there was another message that the Alamo defenders had, and that message I've already issued to you several times, and the message was this: you may try to take many things. You may try to invade our land. You may try to usurp our freedom. But when you try to take our guns, you're going to get a response. Now, you need to understand that William Barrett Travis was at the center of a tax revolt. Did you know that? He was actually jailed because he opposed an unjust taxation. This in the time before the Alamo. He was trying to help people stop the unjust taxation and tariffs that were taking place, that were a violation of the Constitution of 1824, where Mexico had been dealing tyrannically with the people of Texas over and over again. But subsequent to that, the Mexican government said, we're going to come and we need to confiscate the weapon. And if you happen to be out there in the audience today, and you happen to be one of those individuals that's carrying the flag of that day, come and take it! Wave it now! Wave it now! When those troops came down to Gonzales and they tried to take that cannon, a fiery shot was fired out when the flag said come and take it. Guess what? They never got it, and they're not going to get it from us today. Here's my last thought. My last thought is this. When the Alamo defenders came here, they understood something. They understood the state is not God. Only God is God. God is the only source of liberty. We need His help. We need His guidance. Both here and in Boston, there was an understanding in the debate over taxes and freedom that it was predicated on an appeal to God, that there were Christian foundations to constitutional liberties, and if those were abridged, there would be no liberties. They understood that, and they fought for that. And thus, when one of the greatest documents in American history was penned on February 24th, 1836, 100 yards from where you and I are standing right now, William Barrett Travis said this. He said, I am besieged by more than 1,000 or more of the Mexicans under Santa Anna. I have sustained continual bombardment and cannonade for 24 hours. I have not lost a man. The enemy has demanded surrender at discretion. Otherwise, the garrison are to be put to the sword. If the fort is taken, I have answered the demand with a cannon shot. Our flag still waves proudly from the walls. I shall never surrender or retreat. Then I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism, and everything dear to the American character to come to our aid, and with all dispatch. The enemy is receiving reinforcements daily. It will no doubt increase to 3,000 or 4,000 in 4 or 5 days. If this call is neglected, I am determined to sustain myself as long as possible and die like a soldier who will never forget that it is due to his own honor and that of his country. Victory or death! William Barrett Travis. And ladies and gentlemen, the next words he penned were this: P.S. Lord is on our side. After the Constitution was penned, the great Samuel Adams, the man who was the father of liberty in Boston and one of the great men behind the Boston Tea Party, he said this: we have this day restored the sovereign, to whom alone men ought to be obedient. He reigns in heaven, and from the rising and the setting of the sun, may his kingdom come. And my friends, we must be reminded of what the Scripture says, because in the end, all of our political efforts will amount for nothing if we are not humble before God. If we do not repent of the wrongdoing, we cannot continue to subsidize the killing of unborn babies. We cannot continue to subsidize the United Nations. We cannot continue to subsidize all sorts of outrageous wealth redistribution programs which are nothing but Marxism in disguise. We must return to constitutional principles and liberty. And the Scripture says this: if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. And friends, I want to leave and I want to be clear about one thing. The citizens of Texas are not a people who are easily subjugated by tyrants. We may have allowed complacency to lull us into slumber for a season, but we are a sleeping giant. All around us, the blood of the ground cries out. The names of Crockett, Bowie, Travis remind us we are meant to be a free people, which is why our answer will always be the same. Message to Washington, D.C. If you want our guns, our businesses, our constitutional freedoms, come and take it!
Wow. Oh, my. Amen to that. Doug Phillips bringing us home. I have one promise. The next speaker will literally be 2 to 3 minutes. Set your watches. 2 to 3 minutes. If not, there will be a big gong, and there will be a kind of an umbrella pulling them off stage, because I know you're tired. And we want to hear Steve Vaus sing us that song. So 2 to 3 minutes. Set your watches when he gets up here. Robin Jewell is a transplant from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Served in the United States Air Force and made it to technical sergeant before being commissioned. He retired as a captain and settled in San Antonio. While he may not be a political leader or a mover and shaker in the traditional sense, Robin is a self-described church-going computer geek who found himself in the right place at the right time, surrounded by the right people who could make this San Antonio Tea Party happen. Please welcome Mr. Robin Jewell.
Please, I do want to make it brief. I had a 3.5-page speech written by Julia, our media spokesperson. You don't see it here. You have a program, most of you, I hope. Okay, we're going to go over that, so get it out. We started out about 6.5 weeks ago with 6 people sitting around a table trying to figure out, Eric Adam was one of them. You know Eric Adam, he did the video. 6 people trying to figure out how to get people to pay attention to the Tea Party we were going to hold out here, hoping to get a couple of hundred. The police have told our video crew that the estimated attendance is 16,000. Eric Adam is a big piece of that. Okay, moving on. This has been a battle in the war. You will have woken up the politicians. Tomorrow morning, they're going to be paying attention. Oh, what are we going to tell them? Hey, here are some ideas. First of all, go to our website. Register. There's going to be more battles. We will need your support. Okay, we not just need your moral support. We're going to need your money support some more, too. This turned out costing about $110,000. We will not be getting anything from the government. Please, consider a financial donation for the future events. Anybody interested in maybe July 4th we might do something? Next, register to vote. Who out here has not registered to vote? You get registered to vote, and you vote in the next election, and you make sure that you let them know how you plan to vote and who you plan to vote for and why. Educate yourself so you know what to tell them. The rights and duties of a citizen, you heard some of it, but there's stuff on here on where you can find information. By the way, can everybody hear me in the back? Complaining. Okay, there's the 912 project. Glenn Beck, 912. We've somewhat been associated with them. There's also the Texas 912 Project. Okay, good site. The Heritage Foundation, an excellent site. Go there, learn. Wall builders, for those of you who are Christians, who believe that God put this together. I'm the chairman. I didn't do this. Eric didn't do this. Our treasurer didn't do this. God did this, and we all recognize that. God wanted this for some reason and put us in the place. Every time we had a problem, up popped the answer. Stay involved. Okay, don't just go home and, yeah, we had a tea party. You monitor the website. You monitor the other websites. For those of you who listen to Adam, he tells you what to do. Okay, he's got an email list you can get on. You can also consider getting involved in other grassroots organizations. You did hear from TURF. Campaign for Liberty. Okay? Yay. Oh, by the way, there were some other tea parties. Anybody here from New Braunfels? How about Gonzales? Anybody make it here from Bernie? You know this? All right, this is the second tea party in front of the Alamo. Joni, who ran the tea party in Bernie, she had one here about 7 weeks ago. There was about 40 people. I think it's gotten a little bigger now. God bless you, Joni. Okay, write to your local campaigns, state and national people. Tell them what you think. Letters on paper they really pay attention to. And vote for the representatives not on what they're going to give you, but that they are going to represent you and do good. I think I'm over time. I just got the thing. Thank you all for your support. God bless you. And now you're going to hear some music.
Steve Vaus is a two-time Grammy nominee and an Emmy Award winner who has performed at the White House, the Grand Ole Opry, and thousands of other venues. He's recorded, produced, or performed with Willie Nelson, Billy Ray Cyrus, Kenny Loggins, and Kenny Rogers. Plus, Steve has created music for network television shows such as Friends, Drew Carey, and CBS Sports. And he's created musical themes for the U.S. Navy Blue Angels, the Olympics, and America's Cup. He'll be singing the song which he wrote entitled "We Must Take America Back." It's been listened to and downloaded 100,000 times since its release just a couple of weeks ago. The video on YouTube has been viewed nearly 10,000 times now. I've been playing his powerfully patriotic song nonstop on my talk show on 630 KSLR in the afternoons. Please welcome Steve Vaus.
Thank y'all for hanging out. I got to tell you a quick little story about this song. And by the way, Adam, I went to my hotel just before the program tonight. It's now been watched on YouTube 17,000 times. I originally wrote the original version of this song in 1992. It came out on RCA Records. It was the most requested song in the nation on country radio. It was at number 48 on the Billboard charts. I was on tour. But then I got a call from RCA Records that told me it was over. They were taking the song off the radio and out of the stores. Because they had complaints from some of the big city radio stations that they didn't want to play a song about God and country. That was my personal Alamo. We all have an Alamo in our personal lives. I lost that battle. But now 17 years later, I thought, I need to rewrite that song. And so I did a few weeks ago. And then some friends at WorldNet Daily wrote about it. All of a sudden, it's a big song again. And if you like it about this song that's got nothing to do with me and everything to do with God and country. So as long as I've got one breath left in these old cowboy lungs, I'll be singing this song called "We Must Take America Back."
dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are in cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back. Main Street to Wall Street, cities and states, Washington, D.C. Before it's too late, there's not long. We need leaders who lead us, not stick us and bleed us, and ransom our future and our children's that's wrong. We must lead America back as liberty weeps, our forefathers spanning their graves. Pray God will bless some way out of this. We must take America back. Lord knows they'll try to silence our voices. They'll pretend to be patriots, fighting for fairness for all. But they're not even fit to hold office. What they believe doesn't fit with freedom at all. We must take America back. Main Street to Wall Street, cities and states, Washington, D.C. Before it's too late, there's not long. We need leaders who lead us, not stick us and bleed us, and ransom our future and our children's that's wrong. We must see America back as liberty weeps, our forefathers spinning their graves. Pray God will bless some way out of this mess. We must take America back. Fight for freedom and the soul of the USA. Right here, right now, it's Independence Day. We must take America back. Main Street to Wall Street, cities and states, Washington, D.C. Before it's too late, there's not long. We need leaders who lead us, who lift us and lead us, who stand for what's right and stand to what's wrong. We must take America back, now and forever, with God in His rightful place. Then He will bless and protect the U.S. We must take America back. Are you with me? We must take America back.
God bless you all.
Thank you, Steve. By the way, check out his website, stevevaus.com, spelled V-A-U-S. Two final things. Number one, before you leave, if you could look down, and unlike other people who have Earth Day and they leave like 12 tons of trash behind and it's an embarrassment to the entire event, let's look down and grab some litter and throw it out in the trash cans on the way out. Plus, I'm going to ask my bride, Amy, to come up and give us a quick blessing.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up His countenance toward you and give you peace. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming to the San Antonio Tea Party. We love you all.
This is George Butler reporting from San Antonio, Texas. We're at the Alamo Plaza, in front of the Alamo. There's a shot there you can view right now. It's through some scaffolding that was part of the two stages. There were two stages set up, one in front of the other, between us, where we're televising this presentation from, and the Alamo. The Alamo is the facade there in the front of one of the original buildings that still stands here. This is where the people fought to the death, and this is where the Texas Revolution was born, one of the first places. Gonzales was actually come and take it area where you could say the birth of Texas freedom began, but the Alamo was a test of men's souls and hearts and feelings about what is right about freedom in this world today. We're seeing the crowd thin out here now. We had a crowd estimated by police. The police estimated the crowd at well over 16,000 people. It was an enthusiastic crowd. Gosh, it was just so enthusiastic and also inspiring. They had so many good speakers here tonight that it was, let me say, Terri Hall with the toll road site, and she's worked endlessly and tirelessly on toll road issues. She gave just a tremendous speech. Terri Hall, you did great, gal. And there were other people that spoke well, too. Ted Nugent got it down. Boy, he got down there, down and dirty, a few words there at the end. And he castigated what's going on in this country also. The duty of a citizen, a young man by the name of Edward Jaax. He said some very important things about how to become a good citizen. Now, an immigrant story, a lady from Colombia, Katherine Moreno. Oh, she was so moving in some of her pronouncements about freedom. And there were earlier speakers. Julia Hayden, the communications director for the San Antonio Tea Party, spoke very, very insightful and well spoken. She gave a wonderful speech. But we want to thank everyone involved here at the San Antonio Tea Party for attending and supporting this great gala event for freedom in Texas. And this is beginning to be a birthplace of Texas freedom again. We're going to go, this is George Butler. I'll be signing off here shortly. And we're going to go to 1 minute of silence. This is an announcement, information for our affiliates all up and down the line. We'll go to 1 minute of silence, and then we'll go off the air. Want to thank Genesis Communication Network, Ted Anderson. Thank you very much. Want to talk and thank Charlotte Littlefield Brown for being part of Live on Location.tv. Jim Pollock was a part of our technical crew. In addition, Nate Thomas did a fine job as part of our technical crew also. And we want to thank both those. Oh, we want to thank Richard Reeves for loaning us some additional power backup also. So, Richard Reeves, thank you very much for that loan of power. And also, we want to especially thank a long helping hand by the name of David Barrow III and his wife, Laura. He's been lending me one of his cameras for quite a few weeks, and we certainly thank you, David and Laura, for your help in getting these productions done. Okay, we're going to go to 1 minute of silence here. Jim, did you have any closing words? Okay, we've got to go to 1 minute of silence. What's that? We're going to go to 1 minute of silence, and then we're going to go off the air. Thank you very much for viewing this live presentation from San Antonio, Texas, the San Antonio Tea Party in Alamo Plaza. This is George Butler with Green City Network News and also GCNlive.com. Thank you very much for viewing this presentation.